View of 2019 as we go into 2020. I got the homie, someone I've been privileged to learn quite a few things from. Someone that I think this is going to be one of the most important interviews. Those of you guys that are artists, creatives, small business owners, entrepreneurs, you need to pay attention to this, and we're gonna get into it. I got the homie Trey Little, almost 500,000 followers on TikTok, tripled his Instagram following, tripled his YouTube following, all in a matter of 4 months. So don't you go nowhere. I'm dropping that intro. What's going on? It's Ruslan with KingsDreamENT.com. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you to live out God's dream for your life. I hope everybody's doing fantastic. I'm keeping an eye on the chat as best as I can. Check it out. It's 2019. Things are changing. Platforms are evolving. The wicked algorithms are consistently tripping a lot of us up. And what we want to do is give you guys some very tactical, practical game from somebody that's a practitioner and not just a theorist and not just talking about it, but actually being about it. And I'll give you some free resources on how you can adjust. So Gary Vee recently just said that if TikTok adds one feature, that it could potentially eclipse Instagram. And I think that's true. I think I enjoy that platform a lot. And I wanted to bring you guys somebody that I've been acquaintances with over social media for quite a bit, and recently had the opportunity to kind of get to know and hang out with the past couple of days. He's been in San Diego, someone that has grown tremendously on the platform. Like I said, almost 500,000 followers on TikTok, tripled his YouTube, tripled his Instagram in 4 months. And we're going to get into his story. And then, check it out, and then after this, we're going to the Patreon Q&A right here on YouTube. The link is in the description for the Patreon. You could hop in, you could ask him questions, specifically ask him questions, and he will answer them. This is our weekly Patreon Zoom Q&A. Zoom is like a big group chat. Some of you guys don't know. It's like a big FaceTime chat, basically, and we all just chop it up and we do Q&A, and then we go offline for a little bit and do kind of maybe some stuff that's a bit more sensitive, more private. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Detroit's own, Detroit's own, Trey Little. How you feeling, man?
It was good, man. I love that intro, man. Let's go. I'm excited.
Your sweatshirt reminds me of something out of like a Juicy Fruit ad. I like the colors with the rage. Show them the drip.
I don't know if that was a roast or what.
No, that wasn't a roast. I don't roast. No, I like it. It looks great on camera.
Yeah, that look good.
So you kind of got an interesting backstory. Me and you did an Instagram live a while ago, and we talked about how you're from the streets of Detroit. You overcame a lot of the violence and the poverty in Detroit and transitioned into being an artist. So let's just talk about that first part. Like, what was it like growing up in Detroit in the late 90s, early 2000s, and losing friends and family to gun violence, and how did you transition to doing music?
Really good question. So basically, for those who don't know my story, my mom had me when I was 15 years old. She got pregnant with me and decided to keep me, dropped out of high school to raise me. And then my grandma was battling a drug addiction, but her deciding to keep me actually, like made her fight that addiction and like want to come clean. So she decided to take me in, and my mom dropped out of high school and tried to figure her life out. And then that already being as hard as it was, 4 years later, my dad was shot 22 times as like collateral for like some street violence that was going on. So I think that was 22 times. Yeah, it was like 22 times.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 4. And the crazy thing is, like, my grandma told me that I knew this happened. She said she came home from work and I walked up to her and was like, "Hey, my dad is gone. He just got killed." And like, I don't remember that, but my grandma told me that it was something that happened.
Goodness.
So after that, it was like, I think it was around the time the war on drugs hit the streets and stuff like that. And I was like a product of that. You talk about mom having me at 15, losing my dad at 4. It was almost like I was forced to be a product of my environment. Right. And I naturally had a soft heart, but the moment I walked up the street and went to the store, it was guys with guns on their waist. And around that time in Detroit, people would ask what hood you was from. So instead of like, you know, gangs, you know, Bloods, Crips and all that, it was like people were big on repping neighborhoods. So I said, I don't want to rep a neighborhood. And then people were like, well, you either going to get beat or join us or whatever. So I had to kind of like fight for respect. And then once I did that, people taught me how to make money. They taught me how to protect myself. And I didn't want to end up like my dad. And I wanted to break that cycle and provide for my mom. So yeah, that's how it eventually started for me.
So this is early 2000s or late 90s?
Like 2000s, because I was born in 94. So like, yeah, early 2000s.
And just to set some context, I guess, like Detroit also was hit by a huge economic recession because of the collapse of General Motors and Ford, and a lot of the jobs left. And so it went bankrupt right around that same time. So you're talking about like dire, it's not like the hoods in Cali, you know what I'm saying? Like you're talking about like dire, just complete bottom of the barrel and just violence. And here you are, you lose your dad at 4, which is like, my son is 5. I couldn't imagine him growing up without me. How did you get into making music? Like, how do you go from affiliated with street stuff, losing your father to gun violence, to then getting into music?
So basically, while my mom was young, she listened to everything that was hot on the streets, and my aunts and everything. So I had 2 aunts, and they listened to like 50 Cent, they listened to Tupac, they listened to like Nelly, they listened to everything that was popping. And my aunt was listening to like No Limit Soldier's Master P, so I would hear Mystical rapping fast, da 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 da, and I'm like, yo, this sound cool. So I wanted to repeat it. So like I think I was around like 9 years old. I started repeating some of Mystical's lyrics. And then I always thought the cover art and all that looked cool. And
I'm glad it was Mystical and not Silk the Shocker.
We
wouldn't be having this interview if Silk the Shocker was your favorite rapper.
So I started repeating the lyrics and started adding my own at like 9 years old. And I was like, yo, I just made my own like lyric. I was just repeating music, adding my own lyrics. And then that's when 50 Cent came out hard with the Get Rich or Die Trying.
That was a moment.
And and I was like, oh my gosh, I look up to this guy. If I had a father figure, like, man, maybe it'll be this guy. He's hard, he's tough, he beat the streets, and he can rap good. So I wanted to be just like that. So I started taking these lyrics and replacing the lyrics with my own. And then eventually, while everybody was going out and buying weed, I was taking like $5 and found a little trap house on the corner and was getting studio time with like $5 that I got.
Wow.
And I was like maybe like 11, you know what I mean, 12, going to the studio on the corner and stuff like that. So
that's crazy. So you were just hustling, scraping together your own money, going to the studio. And I think what makes your story unique is that one of the things we kind of connected on was that you ended up kind of having your first little bit of success as an artist in like the CCM world. Yeah. So can you talk about like who you toured with and how did that like kind of fall in place for you?
Yeah. So what happened was, my mom moved me out the streets, and she moved me to the suburbs of Detroit, which is like, it's called Taylor, and it's like very like conservative. Like, a lot of people come from like the South Tennessee, so it's like way different than what I was used to. But like, it was like a safer place for me to like kind of make mistakes and you know, get in trouble without getting killed or going to jail for it. So like, I'm out there, and I kind of wanted to discover my spiritual journey. At that time, I had, you know, seen, you know, a lot of stuff happen. You know, people lost their life, and I mean, it was times where I hurt people, and like, you know, I was arrested a couple times, and it was like a dark place where I had beef on the streets in Detroit. And it, just giving a little bit of context, but it was at a point where people were like looking for me, like actively, and I was on planned defense. Like, when they come after me, I'm gonna be ready. So I hit a dark moment, and I was like, man, I can't watch my life or look behind my back everywhere I go. I'm like, man, I just wish that people can forget that they were looking for me. I wish I was like kind of a new person, and I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, I just want to have a clean slate, to be forgiven for everything, all the people I've hurt. And it was like, man, you know, maybe like there's this God or something that can forgive me. I always heard about God, but wasn't interested, you know. So I had seen a lot of traditional churches and didn't want that, but I was like, I knew I needed something fresh. Yeah. So I'm already kicked out of school for the whole school year. I got kicked out of school for for some stuff I did. And around that time, I started going to this church, because I found these little comic books, and it was like, you know, Jesus died to forgive you for your sins and all this stuff. And I'm like, let me experience this.
Little Bible tracks.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just needed forgiveness. I'm like, I ain't trying to be in a suit. I ain't trying to do nothing. I just need the forgiveness aspect. And at the back of the comic book, you know, I prayed for the forgiveness, and it was like,
I think it's amazing that you call it a comic book, by the way.
it was like a little comic book. It was like a little colorful comic book. It said, find a local church, boom. So I found the closest church I could, go to that didn't work out. And then found another church, and they were very like rock and roll, like skinny jeans and long hair. And they were playing this rock music, and it was like covering Hillsong Young and Free, and they had this crazy production system. So you talking about a dude who wants to rap, and I come in and see hundreds of kids at this youth group throwing their hands up, jumping off stages, and I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So the dude walked up to me, who was the lead singer, like, I hear you can rap. Man, you want to start rapping for our youth group? I said, man, y'all got like 300 kids going nuts. Like, of course I would want to be on stage. And he got to know me, got to know where I was at, and was like, yeah, man, let me mentor you and disciple you, whatever that meant at the time. And then he pulled me in. Next thing you know, I'm rapping on stage at this youth group. A couple years later, the pastor of this church was like, my brother had a deal with Sony and Capitol through a band named Bliss 66. And eventually, like, you know, lost the deal and all that, but had all the resources. So they basically was like, we want to take this youth group band, because it was attracting all these kids from the suburb I was in. And he was like, I want to put y'all on the radio. And I got a lot of connections. Next thing you know, we're working with one of Eminem's engineers, and we're on the radio now. And we started touring all across the country. And that's when I became friends with the Newsboys and started playing, you know, some of their headlining shows with 20,000 people, 30,000 people.
Crazy.
And yeah, but I've toured with like almost all the top Christian artists, you know, since I was like a teenager. So.
Wow. So how new into your walk are you when you start touring with the Newsboys and start getting some of these Christian CCM looks?
So it was probably like a couple years into it, you know, like a couple years into it, because at my first church, it was like super traditional, like Pentecostal. And I was looking for something new. I was like the only black person there. So like I started looking for a new place. And then once I found the new church, it was like, I was only there for like, what, a year or something like that. And then after that, you know, got plugged in, people gravitated towards me. And so I'm thinking like maybe like 4 or 5 years into being saved or something like that.
Wow.
You know, so.
So what was that experience like? You're from the streets, you're not really familiar with this, like, you know, CCM, rock world, you know what I mean? And then you're on these tours, I'm assuming in front of a different environment than you grew up in, right? What was that experience like in terms of now you're immersed in contemporary Christian music and you're kind of like the token rapper at some of these things?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was interesting. I'm really thankful for my manager at the time, for what I did learn from him, the stuff I did learn. It was like, he meant well. He kind of helped me clean up, because when I first came in, I was sagging. I was like talking like it was like Detroit slang. Probably still like, you know, just using like a lot of language that came with the streets, you know. So like he was like, Trey, you like grabbing your crotch on stage, like white people aren't gonna. And he literally was like, they were like, you gotta think, what are the white people gonna buy? It was like, what are suburban?
He was that direct. You gotta think what the white people.
Yeah,
are
it was
buy.
like white people aren't gonna buy this, because he was a solid businessman, you know. So he was like, you gotta think, what are the white people gonna buy? And it was true. It was like, oh well, you got this kid who grandma and family never had a bank account, so I'm seeing like success. Like if I do this, I will be successful. So it was like going in front of all these audiences, and I kind of played, you know, I kind of PR'd myself and really kind of put a behind a lot of my feelings, just to know that like this could lead to success, you know. So it was hard, and I would be on stage, and it was a lot of criticism when I got off stage, until I learned how to really carry myself and communicate to an audience that was different from me. So, but yeah, I mean, the art is what made a lot of people gravitate towards me. I had to dumb down a lot of my lyrics. I couldn't rap too fast, and it was very simple, and it worked. You know, we made it on radio, and, you know, started traveling to all these festivals, so.
And what was that transition out of that like, and why did you transition out of that world? Because here you are, you're popping, things are taking off, you're on these big tours with the biggest Christian acts in the world, not what you're doing now musically.
Yeah.
Like, how did that transition happen?
So it basically got to a point where I realized, like, it was almost like, I felt like, you know how people say selling your soul, and like it means like
most people say selling your soul in the context of like the Illuminati in the secular world. You're saying selling your soul, it felt like it was for the Christian world. That sounds very opposite to people, because people think as long as you rap clearly and cleanly about Jesus, you're good, and that's what God desires. And you're saying, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're saying the opposite. It sounds like you watering down your lyrics, watering down your art, the technicality of it, the content of it, making it maybe not as raw, maybe not as good. You're saying it made you feel like you were selling your soul.
Yeah. So people say selling your soul isn't some ritual. They say it's like changing who you are and what you're comfortable with in order for money or in order to like find success. And that's what I was doing. So it got to the point where we did a show in like Saginaw or Flint, and people were like, yo, homeboy up there rapping, like, is there more of him? We want, because they kind of had me like playing a background. It was like, you know, we're from the suburbs, but as long as we got Trey, we can say we're from the streets or we're from Detroit. And that's what they were kind of promoting me, but not really giving me like the spotlight. It was like, you kind of come in just to give us that little hint, you know, which was a good marketing tactic. It worked. So
they were trying to act like they were from the streets of Detroit. They were really from the suburbs.
Yeah, yeah.
And is the rest of the band black or white, or what's the thing?
I was the only black person. So this is what happened. So I'm on stage and I'm rapping, and people looking at me like, bro, you are dope, and you're only rapping these cheesy lyrics. We want to hear more of you. And it was at a point to where like people who knew me couldn't relate to me no more. I started wearing tighter jeans. I started talking a little proper, and people like my family was like, man, we're not even recognizing you no more. And whenever we would travel, people were like, man, this is like fluff, because a lot of my raps were just like, you are great God, you, and it was just very like dumbed down. And once it hit a point to where I wasn't really appreciated for who I was as a black man and like where my story was, it was a lot of stuff said that shouldn't be said, and like people kind of benefited off of me but not really respecting like who I was and where I was from and stuff. So that's what made me get out of that, because it was like I seen a lot of people play like, as long as we do this publicly, we're gonna make money. And I was like, man, I can't do this. My people back home don't even recognize me anymore, and I'm not reaching anyone, or I'm not connecting with anyone by me being this Kidz Bop version of myself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I took that leap, and I was like, man, even if I lose this, even if I never play at a festival again, I need to be myself. And I took that sacrifice. I never played any festivals but one, and I went from playing festivals all summer, the biggest Christian festivals, to like not playing anything but one, and accepting like, man, I need to be myself and be able to tell my story, because that's what's really going to connect with people.
You know, it's wild when you hear when I hear you say these things. These are a lot of the same things I've heard a lot of other Christian rappers say.
Yeah.
That will remain anonymous to protect the innocent and the guilty. But guys that have went on and got sucked into these like Winter Jam, Rock and Road Worship Tour type environments, with the intent of like, I'm gonna go there and expose these people to a different world and tell them my story. And then when you get there, you realize how sanitized it actually is, how watered down it really is. And so it's funny that the very things you're saying I've heard directly out of the mouth of some of the biggest Christian rappers that I've been able to be around. And that's very fascinating to me, because I think the fans think the polar opposite. The fans think, Trey Little, you want to be a mainstream artist, it's because you really want to be famous and rich. You know what I mean? And you're like, no, you don't understand. I was doing great being the Christian safe artist, right? I was doing great, and a lot of people don't understand that there's actually a lot of money in the Christian music world. And so I think that is a very interesting juxtaposition, because to the public it looks like the opposite. To the public it looks like, man, if you're doing secular stuff, you must be getting rich and selling your soul to the devil. And you're saying, nah, I was actually doing really well over here, except I felt like I was selling my soul, maybe not to the devil or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? You felt like you were selling out.
Yeah, felt like a slave.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
you dropped the slave word on it.
I mean, but like I had no control, like no freedom of, you know, so.
Wow. So how did you pivot? Like, how did you pivot and transition into what you're doing now, which is, it's still clean, it's still positive. I still hear your worldview in it and your faith in it, but it's definitely not as overtly Christian as it used to be. What was the shift to pivot? And like, what did that look like for you personally, and why did you do it?
So basically, it was just like, man, all the stuff that I couldn't talk about, you know what I mean? That I couldn't talk about, you know, my mom still being in the hood and being in the streets, you know, partying, living her life, and, you know, my stepdad being in the streets, and the stuff that I was scared to talk about that, like, wasn't going to be a sanitized version of myself. I started saying, you know, I need to write this stuff. You know, I need to talk about my life, you know, my mom and everything, you know, and then I started putting it into music and I started kind of testing it out. And I realized that like once I threw a song out there when I wasn't just, you are a great guy, but it was like, you know, I came from the streets, came from the ashes, boom, and like really inviting people in my pain and my struggle. That's when people started to connect with me, and people were like, this song like just rocked me. Like your story alone. And like it was slow at first. Like I said, I went from playing all these festivals to none but one. And then the moment I started speaking and telling my story, man, like people started really gravitating towards me, and people started booking me to speak and share my story. You know what I mean? Like at colleges and graduations and high schools. And that's when it all changed. The moment I started really saying what sets me apart from any other artist out there. That's my unique story. And I have to wear it on my sleeve. I can't be ashamed of where I come from. And that's when it all started changing. And the mainstream world started to relate to me. Like, bro, your mom had you at 15, you lost your dad at 4. Like, wow, man, that's some stuff. You know what I mean? And then people started listening to my music, and it started, you know, growing.
So when did TikTok come into the picture? Because I think if people Google you now, you're one of the few rappers, one of the few independent rappers that I know that's like booming on TikTok. You've been on Brandman Sean's platform. Shout out to Brandman Sean. You are doing very well on TikTok, almost at 500,000 followers on TikTok. Since then, all your other numbers have tripled, and you're consistently. And I think when I saw you on TikTok, I started asking you about TikTok. You was at like 20K or something like that. Like it was still light. It was a couple months ago, and I was like, man, I'm trying to explore TikTok, and you started giving me some tips and stuff like that. When did that become a part of the tactic, and how did that become a part of the tactic?
So it started like 4 months ago when I seen like Gary Vee, for those who don't know, is like one of the leading entrepreneurs for just business in general.
If you don't know who Gary Vee is, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, right. He started talking about how TikTok could be this thing that take over, and I heard him doing videos about how he predicted Instagram was going to be the new thing, and people are like, no, that's just photographers. So he started talking about like Lil Nas X was like the first person to really pop off, and then I heard Brandman like you can make money after you get 1,000 followers, and I'm like, I only got 60 followers. How am I going to get 1,000? You know?
Yeah.
And like heard Brandman talking about the benefits of it and talking about how you can build a fan base, and I was just binging like a lot of Brandman stuff and a lot of Gary Vee stuff, and I was like, let me try this thing out because I have nothing to lose, like, you know. So I started posting, and like I just seen Gary Vee post a lot, so I was like, let me post a lot. So I started posting like 7-8 videos per day for like a month, and I had like 10 videos, and then my 300th video is like the one that really popped off. And then once I started posting, I seen like, whoa, this video right here did well. Let me emulate and like continue to do what's working on this one video. Yeah, you know.
So the inspiration for TikTok comes directly from Brandman
and Gary Vee,
whose platform you've been on now.
Which is crazy.
And Gary Vee, and your approach to it, just so we're clear, because people are gonna want the tactical stuff. Your approach to TikTok was you approached it in a native form. You didn't try to go over there, started scaling stuff for TikTok. You went to TikTok and started making stuff intentionally for TikTok.
Yes.
How many videos were you making a day?
Okay, so I was making like I said, I was making like 7-8 videos a day, but this is the thing that I see every single rapper do. As soon as they get on there,
yo, check out my music.
Yeah, look at my music
check out
video,
my music.
And you're gonna get what, 50 views? You know what I mean? One view. That only worked with Arizona Zervis. Like, I don't know, that was just luck. You know what I mean? But everybody's not him. You know, so when I did do those videos, like no one cared. It wasn't until I started looking at the trends, I became a part of the community. A lot of artists are selfish. They don't want to become a part of the community. So what they do is look at me, and look at me. In that world, like everyone cares about themselves. If you can entertain other people, make other people feel good, they're going to gravitate towards you. And it's not about really showing yourself and just logging off. Like I see rappers post 3 of their music videos, log off. Once I started posting videos, like certain dances or certain songs that were popular, that's when things really started to move. When I started looking at what the community, it took me like 300 videos to see what the community was doing. And then
Say that again. Back up. It took you 300 videos.
Yeah.
You made 300 videos?
Yeah.
You mean you didn't go viral off your second video? 300 videos.
Yeah.
You had to humbly go and approach that platform and meet the people where they were at instead of trying to make them come to where you were at.
Yeah.
So you went and you looked at the trends and you looked at the dances and you looked at the songs that were popping, and instead of just posting your own songs, you were actually paying attention and being a culture student and immersed yourself into that world. And so it took you 300 videos. And when did you actually start seeing the needle move?
It was when, I think it was like a video when I had used someone else's sound, and it was like, it's so funny, it's so cringy, but it was like a dude flipping his phone over a pool. And I, like, my wife was asleep, so I was like, let me think of something. Let me just try to be creative. At the time, my creative juices was flowing. You're talking about over 200 videos into it. So I was like, I like grabbed my wife's phone, which was waterproof, and I made the water look like it was boiling, and I started flipping her phone over the pot. And then like I used the other dude's sound, and it hit like 1 million views, and I was like, what? Like 200
videos in.
Yeah, or like almost 300 in. Yeah.
300 videos in.
Yeah.
You think of a creative idea, use somebody else's sound, and then that video gets 1 million views.
Yep. And then after that, I like randomly did a prank with my wife. I was like, I'm gonna act like a lot of things that was going on was like people would do these public pranks. So I was like, I'm about to act like I just met you real quick. And I was like, kiss or slap. And it was just so cringy. And the thing is, which was important is I wasn't sharing this stuff on my other social media because it wasn't a part of my brand, you know? So I was just kind of.
And you're using a platform natively. Yeah. Natively just means the way the platform is intended to be used. You're not sitting here trying to take content you would create for Instagram and scale it to TikTok. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're trying to actually grow on a platform, you have to be willing to use it the way it's intended to be used. That's where a lot of people drop the ball, right? They go on TikTok and they think they're supposed to open up TikTok and say, yo, check out my music.
Yeah, because nobody cares. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares about me on there at first, and now people do. So what happened was, I did another video, like, and I act like I like randomly met my wife or whatever, who was like a random girl. And then that video hit 1 million. And then I was just trying different trends out. And then I was like, okay, so this is when things really changed for me. And I'm really glad I figured this out. But it was like, you know, I'm making videos. And then all of a sudden I had this idea like, man, I want to talk about myself as an artist. I think I was at like maybe like 200,000 followers at the time. And that was like after the interviews with Brand Man Shine, and after I've seen like this consistent growth. I maybe had like maybe 100,000 followers. Yeah, 100,000 followers. So. Which happened from those 2 viral videos. And then I was like, you know what? I don't cuss in my music. Like, let me make a video about it. I'm like, man, people might say I'm the Kids Bop rapper. You know what I mean? And I don't like people calling me this kind of rapper. So I was like, you know what? Let me just try it. And then I did the video. I mentioned like NF, how he's clean and how I met him and all this random stuff. And I was like, this is why I don't cuss in my music. And I was like preparing for the negative comments to come in. But the video blew up and went crazy. And it was like, it actually made me stand out instead of being boxed in as this corny, clean rapper. And once I hit a certain amount of followers, I started kind of using the trends of like the certain sounds. I started using popular sounds. So I was still natively using the platform, but then I built the following to talk about myself. And then that video blew up. And ever since that, I started incorporating who I am as an artist while still following the trends, you know.
And then I saw you do not contest, but kind of like a contest, I guess, where you were like, yo, if you use my new single in your TikTok video, I'll follow you back. And when I had checked that, I don't remember how, but it was had already had like 1,000 videos made with your song. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, that's so creative, because and then you actually giving them something. I'll follow you if you do this for me. You know what I mean? And so I think the takeaway, there's so many takeaways, man, but I love your humility in it. I love you being willing to be native to the platform and respect the platform. Here's the deal, guys. Even if TikTok doesn't take over Instagram, the fact that Trey was willing to sit and learn the platform natively and humble himself, and really what you're doing is you're learning how to communicate. You're learning how to communicate in a way and on a platform that's unique to its own ecosystem. So you're willing to communicate, you're willing to put in the work. I think that's dope, because you get that tenacity of making. How many videos have you made total now, you think?
It was almost like 700.
So you made 700 videos. That discipline and that consistency and persistency of making 700 videos, even if TikTok becomes the next Vine and falls off the face of the earth, first of all, you've tripled your other social media platforms. And then you could take that same skill set and apply it to YouTube, apply it to Instagram now, because now you have the discipline and the consistency. See, the issue is most creatives are very self-centered and
Yeah.
inward focused. They
Yeah.
think that everything's supposed to come to me because I'm talented. I'm the savant. I'm great at what I do. You should like my music because I'm good. And it's like, bro, you know how many people out here got good music? Y'all know how many people out here are good and no one cares? You know what I'm saying? So it takes a degree of humility with persistence, with a strategy to figure something out and then go. Now, let me ask you this. Gary Vee said he thinks TikTok is one feature away from blowing Instagram out of the water. And it was actually the same, it's the same idea that Instagram used to kind of knock Snapchat off. Like, people still use Snapchat, but it's not what it was a couple years ago. And Instagram bit the stories feature on Snapchat. I think this was 2016 that happened. And literally, like, the user rate of Snapchat went substantially down. So his prediction is, if TikTok does that, and they what they do is they take in their grid, they add a photo section and steal that from Instagram and add it. He's like, I think that TikTok will then take over. You know what I'm saying? And what makes TikTok more unique, in my opinion, is that when you post, everybody gets a shot to go to the For You page. Yeah. They expose you to a small group. If that group engages or rewatches the video, they expose you to a bigger group. And then you grow in the virality. So everybody has a shot at that. So my question to you is, do you think that TikTok has the opportunity to potentially knock Instagram off its mark?
Yes, sir. So one of the biggest things I've seen is, like, I ran into like this girl who had like 40,000 followers on Instagram, and she was like an influencer or whatever. And I talked to her. I was like, hey, you should get on TikTok. And I was like so adamant about it when I was only at like maybe like 10,000 followers on there. But I was like, you gotta try this. And she was like, I don't know. And being like real kind of like, I don't know, maybe if I got time. But I was like, no, just post one video. She posted like one video. Video hit like couple million on her first video.
Wow.
And blew up. And then she posted another one. She was like, with some wolves or whatever, and then used Kanye West's Wolf song. And then the video blew up, and she hit like 80K off her second video. And for me, I was like, wow, I don't have that kind of luck.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't, I'm not lucky. I have to work for it. But the crazy thing that happened is, she's built this thing on Instagram. It only had like 3 comments on her post. You know what I mean? Like on a page with 30,000 followers. But on TikTok, your second post got you 80,000 followers and tons of comments. So I think that, of course, once people kind of, because people get established on Instagram, and, I know once you get verified and stuff, it's easy to kind of put your eggs all in that basket, and then it's hard to start from zero on a new platform. Like for me, I had like 6,000 on Instagram, jumped on TikTok with 0. So for me, that was still kind of hard, but I was willing to try. And I seen other people that I've known with only like 3,000 followers, and I was humbly hitting them up like, how did you get to 3K? So yeah, I think so. I think it'll really like sweep it up, because the algorithm, meaning that you can have 50,000 followers on Instagram, post, and no one sees it. You know what I mean?
You could have no followers on TikTok, post, and a bunch of people can see it.
Like, and that's the big thing. So I think with TikTok, like every day I'm like, all my videos, every time I might post a video today, it's going to get like 50,000 views. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a part of it. My next goal now is, how can I hit another 1 million views? Every day I'm trying to get another 1 million views on a video. So
what I like about you is that you were willing to do the work.
Yeah.
You were willing to do the work. So many of you guys watching, and I'm gonna be honest, like even myself included, sometimes we just are afraid to do the work. We're lazy. We don't think we'll get the return on the investment.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that you're willing to do the work. I appreciate that you've laid out a blueprint. I got one last question. Can I get a shout out on TikTok?
I mean, I'll post a video with us on there, of course.
Let's go. Get my numbers up. Yo, but to your point, I hit you up and you started giving me some game. You and Alex Dion Wilson, by the way. Alex Dion Wilson is genius.
So dope.
So good. And he does totally opposite of what you do, and it works for him. He literally just posts like little mini sermons, and he'll use the trending music, but he doesn't do like the challenges and that kind of stuff. And that works for him. And he's at similar followers. I haven't checked his follower count lately. But just me literally making an effort of like a week, uploading one video a day for a week, and I grew to like north of 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is the fastest growing thing. And then, you kind of hit that wall and you're like, oh, I should be growing faster. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely am convicted in the new year to get back on and get consistent. I'm telling all my patrons, like, you need to be on TikTok.
Yeah.
You need to be putting in the work. You got to stop being afraid of the work. Do you have any final thoughts, any final just anything you want to share with people before we hop on a Zoom call?
Yeah, so one of the cool things that happened is like if you put in the work, the reward is at the end. So like now I literally get to post videos about who I am as an artist. And I'll still get to do like the dances and the funny trends when I want to. But every day I'm like, people want to hear my story now. Like, who am I? What do I do? And like I was on my way here in the airport and a dude like walked up to me with this security outfit on or whatever. I thought he was about to come say something or grab me up or something. He was like, bro, I'm a big fan of you, man. I found you from TikTok. And I was like, yo. So like anywhere I go now in Michigan, like, I mean, and out here too, I got some followers from TikTok out here that wants to like meet up and stuff. But anywhere I go in Michigan, when kids are staring at me, I'm almost assuming they know me from TikTok. Almost anywhere I go now in my city, you know. So like, and then my Spotify numbers went from 600 to like almost 5,000 followers in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
All my numbers.
That quick, huh?
Yeah, all my numbers everywhere, Instagram, YouTube. And then I'm actually starting to make money now from Spotify, YouTube. So the reward is in the end if you discipline yourself, work hard, and then like you said, if you're humble enough to try new things and just go after it, you know. So
yeah, let's do this. Let's we're gonna wrap this up. I appreciate you doing this. We're gonna go offline. We're gonna set up the Zoom call. If you guys want to be in the Zoom call, just sign up for the Patreon, or if you're already a patron, hop on there. That link is in the latest post. If you go to Patreon right now, link's in the latest post. In the description is a free TikTok class from the man that inspired Trey Little. Brandman Sean has a free TikTok class, so you can sign up for that if you want to. So we're gonna take a quick break. Come back with our Zoom Q&A community right here on YouTube, then go offline, and maybe while we're offline, Trey will walk me through how he makes a TikTok video, because I think that'd be dope. You know what I'm saying? And I get that shout out, you promise me. Any final thoughts?
Nah, man, just keep working at it and hit me up if y'all got any questions. You know, I respond to everything. It's getting harder to now, but I respond to everything.
Mr. 99 plus DMs.
Oh man, it's crazy. every day.
Yo, appreciate y'all rocking with this. Give this video a like, thumbs up. And make sure y'all following Trey Little on all platforms. I know he's about to dive back deep into the YouTube content, adding value there, getting his own Patreon community.